Welcome to It's a New Day. My name is James Young. Before we begin this week's show, I want to let the viewing audience know that we are not forgetting last week's show. And last week's show involved Alan Williams, former member of the school board. We are still pushing that issue forward. We're going to keep you updated of the things that we are going to do to make someone become accountable for the lack of accountability with the school board. With that said, I'd like to introduce our next guest. And today my guest is?
Elaine Spaull, and I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Thank you. I know that you're an educator. I know that you're a lawyer. I know that you're a youth advocate, and I also know that you're with the city of Rochester on the council.
Right.
Oh, we're very pleased to have you here.
Thanks.
I feel very fortunate to have you here because there is an array of questions that I can ask you on so many different spectra. First, I'd like to talk to you about the city council.
Okay.
Would you explain to us, what is the city council? Does the council tell the mayor what to do, or how does all that work?
Well, we have a great relationship with the city administration, and let me tell you, there are 9 members of city council. We're all elected for 4-year terms. 4 of us actually represent a district, a quadrant, a quarter of the city, and the other 5 serve at large. And primarily our opportunity then is to work with the administration on legislation and to really oversee the budget. But at the same time, we have a tremendous responsibility to represent the voters and the people who live in our city. And so on any given day, I could get a call from someone who says, I'd love a new tree in my front yard, to there's a new store coming in, to could we have speed bumps on our street, to someone who's worried about school. So it's a wonderful, amazing opportunity. Now, it's 24/7. Even though it's part-time. And we do work hand in hand with the mayor, but I guess you could say that he likes to tease us. Mayor Richards is a wonderful guy, and he likes to tease us and say he has 9 bosses. That doesn't really work that way, but I suppose we can veto and say no to things that the legislation may ask for, and we just say we don't want to approve that, or we need more information. So in some ways, our responsibility is to the citizens of our great city, 210,000 of them, and I represent about 52,500 of them in the East District.
Is your representation just on the east side or for the whole city of Rochester?
I'm a district council person,
Okay.
So I represent the east side. And the east side's got wonderful borders all the way downtown to the river, out almost to Arundequite, the whole Browncroft area, down all the way to Brighton, and Park Avenue and East Avenue, Monroe Avenue, Webster Avenue, Parcells. I have a great diverse district. So it's got some of the most resourceful people and properties in the city, if you look at East Avenue, and then it's got some of the most challenging properties and areas of our city, if you think about some of the areas off of Parcells and off Webster Avenue, which is a stabilizing neighborhood, but over the time has had some challenges. So I love it, James. I just love being able to represent so much diversity.
I'm going to switch hats.
Okay, that's all about city government. You don't have any other questions? That's good.
I want to talk to you about education.
Okay.
Last week I did a show with a former board member, Alan Williams.
Yes.
And he told me, it was just a lot of the information was really appalling.
Yeah.
He stated that the city of Rochester, or the school board here in Rochester, last year spent $690 million.
Right.
And for that, we had a return of 46.1 graduation rate.
Right.
As,
We're missing the boat someplace,
Yeah.
aren't we?
Yes.
We're missing the boat. What it tells you is that money alone can't get us the outcomes we want. Some of the things the district is trying so hard to do will yield positive results, but just having a whole lot of money without the right kind of people really pushing the initiatives, and the teachers and parents, there's so many social problems that are facing our young people as well. What I try to do is to focus on, and today's a very good example of it. Today, we at the Center for Youth distributed 2,100 book bags to first and second graders at 14 schools. Now, in those book bags are going to be books that they're going to get every 2 weeks over the summer at home. Why is that important? We know that being at grade level in your reading by the end of third grade is a predictor of high school graduation. Maybe up to 75% of our kids will actually, if they are at grade level, firmly and strongly by the end of third grade, they can graduate. I would like to see our district continue to focus with a laser focus on those things that could make a difference. Attendance, truancy is a tremendous, tremendous disincentive to graduation. If you're not there, they say showing up is 90%.
Exactly.
It's like a job or a relationship or anything else, but our kids often are missing from school, missing from instruction. So I hope that we will begin to see in some very determined and focused ways initiatives that we know make a difference and keep kids safe as well.
Now, this may be a loaded question to some sorts, but I remember under the previous mayor, he wanted to bring the education system under the mayor's office.
He did.
Is that a good thing? How
Well,
do you see that?
I'll tell you what I liked about the initiative that Mayor Duffy pushed forward, mayoral control, mayoral responsibility. It put a focus and a light on our education system that talked about shared responsibility, which no one had done before really in that way. The problem was that it never really got the support across the board, including some folks in Albany, that we needed. And I think his goal, out of pure frustration, people want to fix this problem. One of the reasons city government and the mayor and city council is so concerned about education, besides loving our kids and wanting them to be successful, is that I often find that when I walk door to door, I'll meet wonderful young families with little babies or 2 or 3 year olds. And I say, well, I'll be back in 4 years when I run again. And they say, we won't be here. In 4 or 5 years, when our young people, our children, are school age, we may move away. Now, we are losing population in our city. Now, we're seeing a lot of people come back when their kids are grown. We got lots of wonderful empty nesters, lots of young professionals, but we are losing population. And as a city government and as a mayor, you got to stand up and say, wait a second, it's costing all of us way too much. And then, of course, you'll hear people remind everybody that the city, your property taxes, if you're a city resident, 119 million of them go to the city school district. We give that allocation. We'd like a little bit more return on our investment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think mayoral control was one strategy to try to put a focus and a light, and I think he achieved that. He may not have achieved the whole program, but I think he did ask for call to action on behalf of our children.
Now, still with education, you can readily see the correlation between crime and education. As the education goes down, we see the numbers of crime increasing. Once again, last year, 53.9% of students failed.
Yeah.
How does the city incorporate that into its budget? Who's going to take care of them? I guess it's left to the government to take care of these people.
Well, here's what we know to be true. If you're not engaged in school, if you're not engaged in a forward movement around your own career, if you might not be engaged at home, you've got nothing going on for you. You will find a way to make money and to keep yourself busy. And the way you find is probably not productive. So I'm lucky because at the Center for Youth, I run homeless shelters. And I know what happens to young people who are out of school, out of home, disconnected, not engaged. They are almost always at risk of crime and certainly of other social problems, early pregnancy, early incarceration. These things are a result of being dropouts. Homelessness. We have at the Center for Youth a program called New Beginnings. It's a school for young men. About 60 of them are enrolled, and I rent space from Blessed Sacrament School on Monroe and Rutgers. and the Youth and Justice program at the district pays the teachers, and I take care of the counseling and the wraparound services for the guys. And they come to us over age, under credit, not been successful almost anywhere else. Almost all of them have been in and out of some kind of legal system, maybe been arrested. And my goal is to graduate them and to get them back into the system and out the other end. That's their only chance.
How long has this program been around?
We just started our second year.
Okay.
It started with 25 guys, and it's grown and grown. We hope to be up to 80 next year. We know we're going to graduate 8 of them this June, and then maybe 3 or 4 more in August. I'm so proud of them.
Okay.
I like to tease people saying, you know, when I met these guys, some of them were in jail. Some of them had more babies than high school credits, and that was not good at 17. And we know that we can do better for our kids. We've got to do better for our kids.
What is making this program so successful?
Relationships. Relationships. We handpick the teachers. We have fantastic teachers. We handpick my staff. The guys that are in there are young men themselves that have been very experienced with the streets, with counseling, with understanding. About 20% of our guys in the program at any given time may be homeless. Many of them living in unsafe situations. So, you know, we got to make sure they have food and clothes, but it's about relationships, James. They trust the teachers. They trust the Center for Youth staff. They come to school. Now, they're not perfect.
Of course,
You know, they get themselves in a little mix once in a while, and I got to give them a little talking to, and I'm happy to do that. But I do think these small alternative programs are one way to approach those kids who have been completely left out.
What happens to the ones that just refuse to be reached? I mean, what does that do to a program? What does it do? Like a shepherd has a flock.
Yes.
But this shepherd is going to protect each and every one of those sheep. He is not sacrificing one. So, but that kind of mentality, what happens when you're reaching out, you know this program is working, but yet somehow you just can't reach?
I have strays.
Okay.
I have strays. I have strays from my flock. You're very perceptive. I have strays from my flock, and we were talking about one of the guys this morning. Doesn't show up for school all the time. Maybe comes by and sees the counselor. Maybe hangs out. Maybe has lunch. He can't seem to get himself in that chair for instruction, and he's positioned to graduate, and he knows it. And something is, he's just had a child, a baby with his girlfriend, and that may be part of the distraction. He has an aunt who loves him, who is on his back constantly. He knows we'll do anything for him. Sometimes he rides by on his bike and waves, but doesn't go to school, and you just want to just scream at him, right? So we do have strays. Bad habits are hard to break. You know, somebody said that a bad habit is like a comfortable bed. It's hard to get out. It's not easy to break that habit. And, you know, we have young men who for many years, since maybe 11 or 12, have had a life on the street, have had a lack of discipline, have not had adult guidance, kind of raised themselves. So the system doesn't work as well for them, even our flexible system. We do have a GED program which captures some of the flock that strays. We have a GED program. GED program is an awesome alternative. It's not the best alternative. It is a program that we will put into place once we really believe traditional instruction and engagement in school won't take place. Then we'll catch them in the GED program.
Okay. Also, with the GED program, would it be possible for them also, if they are academically inclined, to be able to get a Regents diploma?
They can get a GED diploma, but I think we help them go on to college. So this is the one thing that I think is so important. We have kids from our GED program who are now enrolled at MCC. And that's a huge lift. They kind of gave up on themselves, successful with the GED, and then moving ahead. So, you know, the GED is not the end of the line. It used to be, you know, a GED was called a good enough degree. And we're telling them it's not good enough. It's okay as an interim. We got to get you back on track. So there are some kids. Now, we also have a very active workforce program. So getting a degree is only the first step. Getting a job and a career is even more important.
And that's also within inside the Center for Youth?
Yes, we have a program called Learn to Earn.
Okay.
And so we're trying to get you to have some good work ethic. And, you know, once in a while a young person will say to me, well, you know, I think I'm going to lose my job because I haven't been on time for work. And he's like, I don't understand. And I said, well, let's imagine you have a girlfriend that you're very fond of, and you tell her to meet you for lunch. And she says, I'll see you at 12 o'clock, and you come at 12:30. You think she's going to be happy and she's going to be waiting for you? He's like, no, I would never do that. I said, okay, this is your job. Someone's paying you to be there. You need to be there at 5:12. And so you try to give them examples in real life.
I know that the center has been around for, I believe, since 1972.
Yes.
And were you around with the center then?
I wasn't.
Okay.
I wasn't. I have a long and checkered path. I can tell you a little bit about it
Okay,
if you want me
yes.
to. I think it's pretty well known by now, so I'm not telling any secrets. I came to the Center for Youth just 11 years ago, and I was a corporate tax lawyer practicing law at Nixon Peabody, which is a big, wonderful, major law firm downtown. And I was making a bundle, I'll tell you. And my mother, who was my great support and hero, was dying, and I knew she was dying. And she said to me, you know, at the end of the day, you really have to make more of a difference. You're making lots of money and you're working all these hours, but the universe seems to be missing your spirit. And at that same time, I got a call from a friend named Walter Cooper and his wife. And Helen and Walter Cooper, Walter Cooper's a great member of our community and the first African-American PhD chemist at Kodak. A wonderful, wonderful family, and Helen's gone since that time, but they called me and said, look, you need to look at this job. The Center for Youth is looking for a new executive director. Get out of that fancy law firm and get your feet wet. And I went to the Center for Youth 11 years ago. So before that, I had practiced law and gone to law school. And before that, for 17 years, I was a dean of students at RIT.
Well, that also answers my question, because I was going to ask you, with someone with your background, apparently, I mean, it's plain to say that life has been good, that why would you get involved with something like this, and why would you care, especially now that you share with me the kind of money that you were making,
Sure.
and the lifestyle that affords you.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could easily live your life very comfortably, doing whatever it is that you wanted to do.
Right.
And why do you care? What would make you come and basically get involved in something like this? For instance, like we've already talked about, there are going to be days that you're going to be dealing with young people that are just going to rip your heart out.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
this isn't easy work.
Yes, it's very hard work.
This is work you take home with you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to let this go.
Yeah.
And when you become involved in this, you evolve to something else. And how do you do it? Why?
Why?
Yes.
My husband says that once in a while. When I left Nixon, I said, no, don't worry, because I'm going to be home much earlier every night. The opposite is true. I tell people this is the hardest job I ever had. You know, 2 weeks ago, we lost one of our young men, Lawrence Richardson, was a friend. He was at the Center for Youth, and those are the days when you say, boy, it would be so much easier to go into a law firm and just put my head down and write some case study or respond to some kind of criminal suit or do some kind of corporate tax law that I was doing. How do we survive the death of our children, really? One of them, who we thought was all set, and he was all set, I will tell you, he was on his path. He had survived and moved forward, and he had worked with us, and he had a job, and he was one of the kids we weren't worried about anymore. So why? Well, you know the expression, I think the Kennedys are the first one that said, you know, too much is given, much is expected. I have had, since almost the moment I was born, the most wonderful life. And I think I reached a point in my own life. I've been married. I'm going to tell you this is going to give my age away. I'm hesitant, James, to say I've been married 40 years this summer.
Okay.
So same guy putting up with me. Of course, he's exhausted by my lifestyle. But we have had the most wonderful life here in the city. We have two amazing children born and raised in the city of Rochester, went to city schools, beautiful young people. I owe this community my very best. I don't need to have an easy life. I have maybe 10 or 15 events a week, 6 or 7 on one day. It's okay. I'm able to do it. I have the energy. I have the opportunity, and it's my great pleasure to give back to this community. I'm a politician, so I also have to run for office once in a while and campaign, but I don't need this job. I don't need the money from it. I give it away as much as I get, and I give away back to the community my city council money, which is my honor and pleasure to be able to do that. And we're doing just fine. We're doing just fine. So I think I've probably gained as much as I've given. When people say, you know, why would you do this? You could do anything. And I think my blessings far outnumber what I'm giving back.
Going back to the young man that was murdered a few weeks ago,
Yep.
from what I understand, they still haven't caught it, that there are no suspects.
Right, right.
And from what I was told is that he was trying to tell other young men about their lifestyle to change, and for whatever the reasons why, somehow this escalated into his death.
I'm not sure we know what happened.
Okay.
There's all kinds of stories. What we do know is that Lawrence Richardson was a hero. He was a courageous young man who made changes in his own life that were not easy, had some ups and downs, no question, but he was on the upswing. You know, we're hearing everything from it was a mistaken identity. He was with somebody, or somebody was looking for somebody else. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. We really don't know, and I'm careful not to make a judgment.
Okay.
I think we do know that Lawrence himself, at the point he was in his life, was on a very positive path, and we're terribly proud of him. We had talked to him, someone at my agency had talked to him about 4 days before his death, and he was describing his job and where he was living, and he sounded just terrific. So I'm not sure what happened. I think someday we'll find out. I hope someone will come to justice. It's important. Another young man with him, Kenny, was also one of our kids. He was also shot. So we're watching out for him right now. But yeah, you know, the perpetrator is probably not that much different from the victim.
Exactly. I can talk from my own experience, and we have got to get this community to understand that we have to bring these young people to justice. Now, I know that this does not fare well with the young men that did this, but I strongly believe that we've got to resolve this.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to also bring this in light to what is going on in the country and the shooting in Florida.
Yeah, yeah,
My particular take on this
yeah.
is that I think that America has got caught up in this media frenzy. And here we have a white person that shoots a black person, and we're all up in arms. We're just crazy. But yet we don't have that same enthusiasm, that same feeling for when a young black person shoots another black person.
Yeah.
Where is the media?
Yeah.
Where are the people rallying around this? They said something like 1,000 or over 1,000 people went to the Liberty Pole to show their support for this shooting.
Sure.
A death is a death. And why aren't we rallying behind this? What do we do?
Yeah.
And I also include that the 53.9% that failed last year,
Right.
in my mind, now perhaps no one else, but this is my terminology, if that's not a massacre, I don't know what is. Because not only has that affected this group of people, but yet they're unborn children. Because if they have no education, the likelihood of their children having an education is nothing. Instead of it being 53%, this will probably be 75% by the time that they get there.
If we don't do something.
If we don't do something.
Yeah.
Well, since you've been there for 11 years,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you've enacted to make
Well, we actually have done some very significant things. Certainly the school is one, it's a huge safety net for these guys.
Okay.
These guys came to me, 3 of them, and said, Miss Elaine, we cannot go back to our home school. We will be out on the street again in a week. We'll get expelled. We'll get sent home. And so I asked the school district to please give me a chance. Give me just a little bit of money. Give me a chance. And it birthed this school. That's a perfect example of how you actually, with both feet in, take this on. These are the most at-risk guys, the ones that would be on the street. They've already had, many of them, criminal convictions. They're turning around. 2 of them have applied to Nazareth College, one in nursing.
Okay.
Right? One of them wants to go into the Army, which is okay. I'm a little worried, but that's okay. And some are going to go to MCC. They all have this great new sense of hope. So that's a very specific thing. The other thing I wanted to mention to you was a program that we have at the center at 29 different city schools and one in Baltimore. We actually run a program in Baltimore. It's an alternative to out-of-school suspension. So in 2004, I'm going to give you a statistic. It's going to blow your mind away, I think, but 11,000 young people in our city school district were sent home, out of school, suspended, sent home from school.
Yes.
Now, what happens when you are, your mom gets a call that says, we're sending James home, he didn't behave well, we can't keep him here, he'll be out of school 3 to 5 days, and you're 12 or 10. She doesn't know what to do with you because she's got to go to work. Plus, you're missing instruction. Plus, she doesn't want to leave you home. You're not supposed to use a stove. You can't leave the apartment. You're on your bike. So bad things happen. 11,000 out-of-school suspensions in 1 year. So the superintendent in those days was, I think, Manny Rivera. I'm thinking way back. And we started at one school, School 45, on Clifford and 6th. It's a beautiful school. In a transitional neighborhood, not a perfect neighborhood, but wonderful people in the school. And they had 233 children, K through 6, sent home. And we said, we're going to turn this around. And Vicki Gouveia, who was the principal, said to Manny Rivera, and I was sitting next to her, and I was pinching her, saying, don't say this. We're going to get that number to less than 10. We're going to go from 233, working with the Center for Youth and Elaine, we're going to get that number under 10. And I said, well, guess what? 5 out-of-school suspensions. We turned that right around. Since that time, we've gone from 1 site to 29 sites and Baltimore. Okay. Keep the kids in school. Keep them instructed. We served 4,000 kids, saving 17,000 days of instruction. That's real evidence. Now, the problem is that we still have many, many kids who just don't show up. And we've got to continue to tell them how important it is that they stay with us. We keep them. School engagement is my #1 mantra. People get tired of hearing about it, but really it is school engagement. I wanted to just say something about the losses we face. Every time we lose a young person to a homicide, to victimization, we lose a teeny bit of our soul as a city. We lose a little bit of our compassion. We lose a little bit of our soul. Those of us who knew Lawrence, who saw him as this amazing potential public speaker, just a handsome young man full of energy, feel personal loss. But the community has a loss. And people say, oh, we're going to get past this because, we have an African-American president, and we're not living in a post-racial society. We are still in the middle of having to deal with these things. And I really do believe that the crimes perpetrated against young men on each other it's something we have got to once and for all address. Two victims. So we have the victim, and then you have a 17 or 18-year-old perpetrator. And I have a couple of my guys who are in jail, in prison, will not come out for a very, very, very long time because they got involved. Even though they were in the school, they were straight, and they got involved with something. We'll never see them back in our program. By the time they get out, they'll be in their 30s. So tremendous loss. Now, the children of those men and women who are incarcerated, you want to talk about them, they've lost their whole support system.
Exactly.
price is very, very high. You know, I've described our community as having like a little bit of a virus. We're not sick enough to stay home. We're not sick enough to go to the doctor, but we're not functioning. We're just not healthy. We got to get, and what is the medication? What is the medication to can turn this virus, this little infection? Well, it's love. Love and caring and commitment. People like you who step up and try to help the community and send messages. People like me, we do what we can. That's the antidote. That's the medication to this virus that we have in our community, this little bit of illness.
Because of your involvement with these young people, I mean, you're getting this, I mean, really firsthand. This isn't theory. This isn't coming by way of something else. You are right there seeing this.
Yes, every day.
As an educator, as well as a political person, how do we emphasize more on education? Now, I know you can't legislate and make somebody be good.
Right, right.
You know, I mean, it's just impossible.
Right.
But how can we utilize the system to be more proactive? How can we reach? Can we develop better programs, maybe to start within the home?
Yep, yep.
How do we influence the school systems to really see what you see?
Right.
Because if we don't do these things, if the home situation isn't up to standards, then that means the educational level for this child is not going to be up to standards. And then I would assume just before they're going to prison or youth camps or while they're in youth camps, that's when you see them. And now what you're trying to do is to turn them back around and put them back on the straight and narrow. How does all of that
come together?
Yeah, come together.
Well, you know, you're so right. You're so perceptive about where the missteps are, and you know, a lot of times we want to blame the children and the young men. Along their path, there was some adult that they counted on who wasn't there for them. It can be because of incarceration. It can be because of a death. It can be because of an illness. Maybe it's just not even the adult's fault. We don't like to blame. We're not into blaming people. But we know that our children are born. I read to a group of six-year-olds over at School 6. They were first graders over at School 6. I went to read to them last Friday morning. They invited me in. They gathered around me. You would think they were honeys and I was honey and they were bees. They swarmed me. They were so hugging me and kissing me and sitting on my lap and couldn't get enough love and sat around me quietly, and I read them a book, and these beautiful faces. Somewhere between there and a 17-year-old who drops out or an 18-year-old who pulls a trigger and kills somebody else, something happens. Our children are born beautifully, wholehearted, ready to love the world and to be loved. And we as adults better do a better job, whether it's a parent or those of us who are community advocates or politicians. We can do better. Our children deserve better. They are grown and born as these beautiful, open-hearted young people, and we let them down. So it's about adults really stepping up. And if it means a teacher, okay, then it's a teacher. If it's a guy at a barber shop who happens to give free haircuts, love that too. If it's a guy at the store, if it's a minister, if it's auntie, if it's a neighborhood, I don't care what adult it is, but we know that if a child has three adults beyond their parents who care about them, they have a very high level of success. So I tease people. I'm Italian. My kids have about 5,000 people they can call. Almost too many, right? They need money, they need advice, they need a ride, they need a hair, whatever they need. When they were growing up, they could find it. Many of our children are growing on their own. They're raising themselves. They're on a path all by themselves. They are incredibly resilient, but they're kids. They don't have the capacity. So it's up to adults. And you know, there's enough of us, if we took 4 or 5 each and just kind of watched over them, I think we'd be okay.
I think the message that you're sharing with us today is a message that this entire community needs to hear and to become involved. I read a book called Outliers, The Meaning of Success.
Yes.
And one of the stories that they used for describing success were a group of immigrants that came from Italy. And they went to a little small town that they ended up naming Rosetta. And a doctor from outside of the community came and was visiting another doctor, and they started talking over dinner. And the doctor that actually lived in the community was saying how they didn't have obesity or heart failure, those things. People there were literally dying from old age. And the doctor that came in from the outside said, this is impossible.
Right.
So what they did, they brought in a team of experts, if you will, to analyze why these people were living so long. And it wasn't because of diet, because they were eating greasy foods. They were smoking, drinking wine, doing all the things that we're not supposed to do. What made this particular town so successful and what made them live as long as they did was the manner and how they lived. They said it would not be surprising to see 3 generations living under the same roof.
Yes.
A town of 2,000 people had 22 civic organizations. It would not be surprising to walk down the street and see these people just stop doing whatever they were doing and engaging each other in conversation. And I believe it is how we live and who we live with determines the quality of our lives, and I'm hearing you say the same thing.
I'm in total agreement. You know, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, Cory Booker, calls himself a prisoner of hope. And I love to quote him. I don't know him. I think I met him once. He probably would say, wait a minute, you're stealing my line. But what does that really mean? It means that we are actually bound by our own determination to be hopeful. That we will not free ourselves from that hope, that we don't have the opportunity to give up, that we're actually prisoners of hope, so that we're actually trapped in our own hopefulness. It's such a great concept. And I love it because we want to give up some days, and I could make a living in a much easier way and a lot more money, but it wouldn't nearly be as important. I think that we have got to learn how to take care of each other's children. So when we see a child who is struggling, that's our child. That's our child. Black, white, doesn't matter. It's our child. Somebody asked my son if he was mixed race. Well, he looks a little bit like me. He's got blondish hair, and he said, I don't think so. I think I know where my parents are. And they said, why are you so comfortable in the African American world? He said, well, my mom has friends and has been exposed my whole life as city people. Our living room has been full of people from all cultures, and I don't know, it just is the way it is. And what a blessing for him to be able to have that. We need to do more of that, and not out of charity, but out of justice. Now, what is the difference between charity and justice? Charity is people who think, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be a nice thing? Wouldn't that be a good thing? Justice is the right thing. It's not negotiable. We can't stop doing it because we decide we don't like that program anymore. We can't stop doing it because we're too busy, we're going on vacation. Justice is entitlement, it's a right. We must make sure that our children have their rights. And charity it's good. The Center for Youth, we accept charity. People send us money, people give us their old clothes, their furniture, we take it all. Their beds, you know, if the mattress is new. We work with homeless kids. I have, 1,000 homeless kids in and out on the street and in our shelters. So we love charity. I have no problem with charity, but I'm after justice. Doing what's right, not giving up. And just imagine, there was a little village, maybe it was the one you talked about in Italy, where the elderly people walked the children to school. They got rid of all the buses and all the public transportation. Why was that important? Well, they went green, so they didn't have all this smoke and gas and toxic stuff. They saved all that busing, and everybody was fit. everybody was in good shape. They all walked. So, you know, a grandpa and a whole bunch of kids would get together, and adults actually walked the children back and forth to school. They didn't need public transportation. They didn't have to be bused. They didn't have to worry about the fumes and the price of gas. And it was a village, and maybe it was that village, but they got together, and they actually, everybody was healthier. Plus, on the way there, you chat. How you doing? How's school? What are you struggling with? What are you happy about? You get to know people. And, you know, they say, we have a campaign that says, small talk, big difference.
Yes.
And having small talk, I don't know if you've done this, but even engaging one of the kids at the grocery store who's the cashier, engaging them, how you doing? You're doing a great job. Are you in school? What's happening? What are you thinking about? All of a sudden they brighten up. So small talk can make a big difference.
Also, listening to you, I see what we're going to have to do is think out of the box.
Yeah.
We keep trying to use, I go back to the school board. They keep using the same thing every year. They don't care if it's working, and apparently we can see that it's not. I love to quote this, the meaning of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and thinking that you're going to get different results.
Different results.
I'm saying that what you're talking about are things that are outside of the box.
Yeah.
These are things that are not established. These are not traditional things.
Right.
You're
Right.
talking about doing things that are beyond the ordinary,
Yeah.
which take us into the extraordinary.
Yeah.
I believe that if we use extraordinary tactics, we can turn around and get extraordinary results. How can we get people to start seeing what you see? How, maybe if you say it.
If I say it, you know, and I say it a lot. My husband says, "Oh, I saw you on TV again." I don't mean ever to be a broken record, and I'm always so grateful when people ask me. But you know, you're right. I have the amazing opportunity of living. I live off East Avenue, across from the Eastman House, in a beautiful house that was built by the same folks that built the Eastman House. A beautiful, beautiful old house, 1893. And married to the same guy all these years, stable, loving family. And yet I see, at the same time, I get to see what's going on in our city in a very different way than most people. And most people don't have the opportunity to see both sides of Rochester. I see both sides of both faces of Rochester. So when I make a decision, when I think about city council, when I think about what we're doing in the city, I don't just represent the people that live in my neighborhood, but I represent all the children. I serve 22,000 in all the neighborhoods. I have 3 homeless shelters. I have a shelter for 12 to 18-year-olds. 300 kids a year come through. When I got there, the average length of stay was 7 days. Now the average length of stay is 16 days. We can't get the kids reunited quickly enough. I run a shelter for teen moms. I have 6 moms and 6 babies. They live in a big, beautiful house on South Avenue, and we feed them and clothe them and try to get them back on track, and they're all homeless. And then we have a whole bunch of kids living in apartments with no supports, no family, and we try our best to pay their rents, and we keep them going. So I see the most challenging, the most struggling young people in our community, and then I get to see the arts and culture and all the beautiful things in our city as well, and it's my job to balance those.
What kind of a plea can we say to the city to be able to take in some of these young people, to look at some of these young people, if nothing else, to talk to some of these young people?
Absolutely.
What kind of plea can we make?
Well, here's what I'd like to tell you. Do you have children?
Yes.
Okay, so as parents, sometimes we see our children, and we want to tell them within the first few minutes everything that's wrong. Your pants are ripped, and you need a haircut, and you were late, and you forgot to do the dishes, and did you do your homework? And they kind of back off, and the next thing you know, they've got their headphones on, and they're on their texting, and they don't want to hear it. I tell everybody this: when you look at a young person, your own child included, you find 3 things that are right about them before you say anything a negative. I don't care who the child is, a cashier at Wegmans, a kid waiting for the bus, a neighborhood kid. You ask them something positive. How was school? You look like you're doing a great job. Good for you. You got up and you're out, you're waiting for the bus. You look terrific. What a great smile you have. Love your sneaker. Find something, something positive, and say those positive things first. Then, particularly if your own kids, you might have to send a message like, and by the way, clean your room, get home on time, or whatever. But we are so eager to find out what's wrong with our children. And they hear it all the time. We have kids that walk into a school building so traumatized by the world. On a Monday morning, they may not have had much to eat since Friday, the last time they were at school. They may not have had a good night's sleep. We often ask kids, where do you sleep? What did you eat? I want to hear about them. I want to figure out what's wrong with them. We had a young boy, a 3rd grader, who was always in trouble at School 45. He was
3rd grade.
3rd grade.
Isn't that amazing?
3rd grade, always in trouble, ready to be sent home, out of school, suspended all the time. We got to know him a little bit. We found out that he was fighting because he was being teased. And he was being teased because it was the end of October, was getting cold, and he was wearing the same short pants. He'd been wearing those same short pants every day since school started. We found out that this kid was living with grandma who was struggling, and he didn't have any other pants. We took him to Walmart. We got a gift card for $25 or Target or someplace. I don't leave the city, but one of my staff took them. And he got a pair of sweatpants and a pair of jeans, and that kid never fought again. He never fought again. He was never in trouble again. And it was just somebody saying what's going on. Grandma was doing the best she could. We don't blame. We don't judge. It's not about poverty. I have a young woman named Kendra who I adore since 14 years old. She lived in and out of our shelter. She's a 23-year-old graduate student at Brockport with a degree from RIT and a full-time job and a car nicer than mine. She's doing great, and she couldn't have been poorer, and she couldn't have been more homeless, and she made her way. So we never give up. Let's find what's right about our kids instead of what's wrong.
Exactly, because I feel one of the biggest problems to the problems of children is the adults. Yeah. I think that we've done a horrible, horrible job. Yeah. I think somewhere along the line, somewhere we gave up, and now at one time a generation was 100 years. Yes. Now a generation is down to 10 years. Yes. And now these young people are reproducing so quickly. Yeah. That every 10 years we have, I had someone on the show and she was saying to me that she was born in 1990 something, and I'm thinking, oh God.
How is that possible? Exactly. Right. I know.
And now she has friends that are having children, babies. And it's just, and we're losing them. It's because they're not our children, so we turn a blind eye.
Right, right.
And as a result of this is the reason why they're acting, performing in the manner that they're doing, because they're really looking for attention. They wish someone would pay attention to them. Right. But the only way they get attention is if they have to be bad.
Right, right. What does Maya Angelou tell us? She tells us that when we know better, we do better.
Yes.
And she's not judgmental, and she's a great, wise woman. When we know better, we do better. I always say, except for my driving, which I know better and I don't do better, but you know, we do have habits, obviously, but most of the time, we just don't know. Our kids don't know. They're not being disrespectful and rude. They just have not had an opportunity. And it's not about poverty, and it's not about race. It's about a situation. And if we wrapped our arms around our kids, if we all did that, you know, it's not New York City where we have 33,000 homeless kids. It's Rochester where we probably have in the homeless system and on our streets less than 1,000 kids a year. Still a lot, by the way. I'm not saying it's not a lot, it is. But we could really wrap our arms around each one of those kids. There's enough of us and few enough of them, although too many, for sure. But even if we said we're going to take 500 of the youngest ones, but that's why I like my summer reading program. I like my laser focus on reading at grade level. I like the New Beginning program. We run a teen court program. You may have read about it in the paper. And it's a diversion program. So a 16 to 19-year-old first-time youthful offender has a chance to admit guilt. Yes, I was involved with a shoplifting or criminal mischief or trespassing or minor assault or even first-time possession. I did it, okay. Then we have a sentencing court. The sentencing court is a judge, real certified judge, a city court or county court judge, and teen attorneys and a teen jury. So the judge does the whole adjudication, picks the jury, and then you have a defense and a prosecution present the case, and the jury sentences. They give a sanction. They've already decided that there's guilt. We don't want a person who's been in the system to have that decided by kids, but we do have young people who come to us, first-time youthful offenders, and we give them sanctions from a letter of apology to community service to restitution, and about 80% of those kids complete their sanctions and they never have an adult record. It's very important. Yeah. So that's another way that we can begin to divert. You know, once you're in the adult system, I always talk about the school of soft knocks. Like if you get in trouble with me at the center, you're in the school of soft knocks. If you get arrested, you're in the school of hard knocks. And that school of hard knocks, I might not be able to help you out of. If I get mad at you because you leave your bike in the lobby and it drips oil, I'm going to be mad at you. It's not quite the same as if you get picked up by RPD for criminal mischief and they see you vandalizing something. Now the game is different. But those cases, about 250 of them go through teen court every year. Okay. And those kids have sealed records. They have no adult charges. They have no record, so they can even become a lawyer and a city council person.
Okay, very good. Well, when you mentioned that, one of the things that when I did the interview last week, Mr. Williams said that there are no qualifications to be on the school board. He said that it's votes. So you could be someone without a high school diploma, but if you get enough votes, you're on. I just think that is in such a contradiction when here we have people looking for jobs and something as simple as construction, but because they don't have a high school diploma, they can't get the job. And I just think that we've got to start thinking out of the box.
Yeah, I guess the political process is supposed to vet that somehow so that the opponents, I guess, people would be running against them, might say, do you really want someone who's not college educated to be making decisions for your children? And then maybe people wouldn't vote for that person. I don't know. There's always a political side as well. And I suppose there could be, Malik Evans was very, very young when he was on the school board. He had a job and had gone to the U of R, so he was well educated. But being young isn't necessarily a deal breaker. But I think it would be nice to have an educational background of some level.
Exactly.
But that's not really required. And so during the politics, I guess the opponents are supposed to help the world see what the qualifications are. I don't know. Dirty politics isn't effective anyway. We know in the long run people don't like that.
I grew up here in Rochester. I got myself in a ton of trouble.
You did?
Okay,
would you have been one of my guys in those days?
Man,
I would have had to bail you out?
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, I wore my badness as a badge. I thought that was so honorable.
But there's hope then for everybody.
Yes.
You turned around beautifully.
And I ended up going to Florida.
Okay.
And beyond my wildest dream, I ended up becoming a very successful business person. And now I'm back in Rochester after 30 years. And I'm just amazed, appalled, but I'm getting hope because now I'm starting to meet people like yourself.
Yeah, we're going to be
I'm now seeing that, we have a chance. We can figure this thing out because I'm finding people. I'm getting to know people that are looking at these issues. And we're trying to realistically resolve these issues. Just not talk about them, not just use them as sound bites.
Yeah, let's do it.
But really doing some things.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I have to ask, and that is, how do you deal with this? How do you turn it off when you go home? I mean, how does this, because it's got to impact you. You're coming from one set of circumstances where everything is like this.
Yeah.
And then you see the complete opposite on this side of the equation.
Yeah.
And how does that balance you out so you don't become schizophrenic?
Maybe I am. Well, I'm not home very much. I'm thinking about today. I'll go back to the center. We've got a program, and then at 6:30 I'll go over to Rochester Police Department. Has its honor awards tonight. I'm going to go and celebrate with those wonderful men and women in blue who protect our city. So I'll be there. I'll probably get home about 9:30 or 10. Chat with my husband. He'll be happily watching some sort of sporting event and wave to me and happy I'm home safely. And, I'm a very optimistic person. And I have a very supportive family. I mean, I think that's part of it too. Obviously, we have ups and downs. I lost my father at 93 a year ago. I still miss him. We all have our grief, our ups and downs. But yeah, I try to keep it in perspective, and I'll start all over tomorrow. And but we have a lot of updates at the center too. We have a great team of people. We work together. We keep each other kind of going. Yeah, I know it can be exhausting, but I'm okay. I keep going. But thank you for being worried about that. I know people do worry about that, but I seem to be healthy and we're doing okay.
The reason why that concern is because we don't have enough people that are truly dedicated into making this world a better place. I believe it is our responsibility that if we see a wrong, to make that wrong right.
Right.
And I think there are too many of us that just look the other way. Dr. King said the only thing that is worse than the noise that bad people make is the appalling silence of good people.
You're absolutely right.
And it is
of course, he was wise beyond anybody's imagination, but you're right. We sit back and we say, well, I don't have to worry about that. I like to say, we're in a big, huge boat, and if somebody's making a hole here, eventually we will all be underwater. So you can't ignore that. You can't say, that could never happen to me. That's somebody else's child. That's somebody else's neighborhood. I'm not going to go down that street. The truth is we're all diminished when we have a loss. We're all diminished. I believe there's a wonderful concept that the Gandhi Institute talks about. It's called Swadeshi, and I'm not sure if I'm saying it properly, but it means really every interaction you have, you do no harm. So every interaction you have is positive, is joyful, is life-affirming. If you go through life that way, at the end of the day, even if you've had a tough day, it's pretty good because people respond. So, we have so many people who want to say negative things, who want to tear people down, who want to be negative. You won't hear me say that. I'm not interested in that. I don't have time for that. If somebody wants a gossip, they should probably talk to somebody else. I'm human, obviously, so we get into it sometimes. We say, oh, we don't like her dress or something, but most of the time we have got to be positive.
Exactly.
We've got to be positive. Our kids deserve that.
I really appreciate that my people are telling me that it's almost over.
We've been chatting so much.
One of the things I'd like to be able to do is to be able to come over to the center sometime.
We'd love that.
And to be able to share my story, bring some of my books, and to see if I can touch some young person's life and let them see that there definitely is light at the end of the rainbow.
We would love it. I'd love to invite you when we have our graduation for New Beginning,
please.
guys.
Yes.
Maybe you could come and be part of the cheering crowd for them.
Would love the big deal of that.
Oh, that'd be great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Enjoy your day.
Okay.
My name is James Young. I look forward to seeing you next week. As always, be blessed, and always remember, it's a new day.